Moms for Liberty really worked miracles.
We have a crisis in America in public education. This is the future of our kids and our country.
You are joyful warriors.
And we are just getting started. Hello and welcome to the Fire of Liberty show. You'll see we are in a different studio today. We are in Washington, D.C. live, coming to you, and it is freezing. This Florida girl does not know how to handle this weather. On Saturday, there were snow flurries, and I'm ready to get back home to Florida on Friday and looking forward to that. But enjoying my time here in DC. I've had some great experiences up here so far. I was able to go to the White House for a reception on Sunday. I went to a great gala last night with America Principles Project and Terry Schilling, our good friend over there. We were able to bring some of our moms, including my guest today, who I am very excited to talk to her and to let you guys get to know her a little bit better. She is one sharp lady. I'm Tina Deskovich, the CEO and co-founder of Moms for Liberty and the host of the Fire of Liberty show. And my guest today is Teri Patrick. She is from Polk County, Iowa. And she flew all the way here, and the cold doesn't seem to be bothering her at all this morning. She actually said, I don't think I need my coat. And it's like 20 degrees outside. So welcome, Teri.
Welcome. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
I know. How did you enjoy the ball that we went to last night?
It was fabulous. The venue was amazing. And it was just such a first-class event. And it was so great to be a part of all of that.
It was way fun. The venue, I can't think of it. It was a museum here in DC.
Yeah.
I had never been in, but I went to the restroom at one point, and on the wall there was a plaque built by Grover Cleveland in like 1880. And so it really was spectacular. We had a great time. And so I'm so glad that you're able to come in and do that and then be here today for this. And then for those that are also watching, we'll be at the White House again on Thursday for AI and Education Task Force. And we may talk about that a little bit today, some of the threats to our kids, because Teri is an expert on some of these things. I will say a self-made expert, but an expert nonetheless. And so her current job, she actually has two jobs. One is with Samantha Fett as her legislative aide. Is that the correct title?
Legislative clerk, legislative aide. Yep.
In Iowa. And what do you do in that job?
That job is quite fascinating. I think that everyone should serve in that respect so they can see how the sausage is made, is what they say. But, it's help schedule meetings, do research, subcommittee meetings that she has. She's the vice chair of the education committee. So one of my duties is calling roll for every vote that we take and then recording that.
Calling roll for all of the House?
For all of the people on the education committee. Yes. So anytime that we take a vote, everyone was in that meeting, and then we call the roll and record their votes. And, that way we have it all on record who voted for what. Yeah. So we can hold people accountable. So it's fascinating talking to constituents and organizing meetings and doing research, which I love to do.
Yeah, you are excellent at research, which is why we brought you on at Moms for Liberty to help with MFREL Academy too, because you're so good at it. And what exactly are you doing for MFREL Academy?
MFREL Academy, I love MFREL Academy, right? And I think the value of MFREL Academy is that we hear all these things that are happening in the schools, and then we go talk to someone and they're like, it's not happening. Well, what we do is we actually give you more details about how to have those conversations. So we'll deep dive on all of the topics. So I help coordinate speakers. We've had some amazing speakers on. We just finished social media, AI, gaming, which is a hot topic right now, and ed tech in the classroom, which I think is really important to be talking about. And I put together a presentation so that our chapters can utilize those presentations. And I put all the tools that people can use to be educated in what we're doing.
Yeah. For those that are listening and watching at home, you can go to m4lacademy.org and access all of those tools and resources. You and Missy over there are really building just a toolbox for parents to be able to access to understand what's going on in their children's classroom. So we are grateful. We love having you on the Moms for Liberty team. The Iowa gals always talk about what an asset you are. Sam talks about what an asset you are. And now we get to also experience what an asset you are and using your skills and tools and talents to help us and help parents across the country. So
Thank you.
let me get that one out of the way. Okay, I'm excited about our conversation today because you have some wild stories for one. You've had some crazy experiences for two, and you're just a plethora of knowledge. And so I want to start with your early story of when you first walked into your son's school, high school, I think it was.
Yeah.
And you saw something on the wall or on the door. And I feel like when talking to you, you may say you have a different moment where you started, but I think that was your like, what the heck is going on? And I have to get involved moment. So take it away. What did you see on the wall?
So, you know how kids go to the class, it was there to get your badges. So it was before school even started. So in my district, 10, 11, 12 is high school. Then we have a separate 9th grade school. So he goes to pick up his badge and he's walking down the hall, and outside of the language arts teacher's classroom, it has her like name. And then there is a printout of an article from Vice, the reputable journal.
From Vice?
Yeah. And 100 ways, I don't know, white people.
No. I usually don't have like papers or my computer up, but since we're in a studio at the table, I was like, oh, let me have my laptop out because I want to get this right. It was titled 100 Ways White People Can Make Life Less Frustrating for People of Color.
Correct. So not only did she have that posted, and it literally was the list of there's 100, but they had highlighted specific ones they wanted specific attention drawn to, and she had removed a couple because they were very sexually explicit and
that was nice of her.
100% inappropriate. But what that tells me, though, is that there was intention in what was up there. And so the reason that's important to point out is we had just passed a law. This was in 2021 about divisive concepts and the not teaching divisive concepts in school. So you can't say that I was systemically racist. You can't say America was founded on racism and that systemic racism. You can't judge people by their color, by their sex. You can't say they're oppressed for that. And this was clearly what I thought was a violation of that policy.
So that law was passed in July.
Yes.
And then you are in the fall or late summer, early fall for the school year. You see this on the door and you're like, something does not feel right. And so I want to talk about some of the items because people are like, well,
if they
took out the sexually explicit stuff, what could really be a problem? And so number 46 on the list, don't touch our effing hair. And it actually spells the F word out. I won't say that on camera for a lot of reasons. One, we have a swear jar at Moms for Liberty, and I don't want to have to put money into it. But also, it's poor taste and definitely doesn't belong on the hallway door.
Right.
At school. What are some other ones? Can you think of any of them? If not, I've got them listed here, and I'm happy to cross them out here.
There's one that actually touched on many races. It says, don't think that we can run. You can probably find
I can read it. It's number 8. Don't assume we can run if we're Black. Do math if we're Asian. Have drinking problems if we're indigenous.
Right. So they kind of cover the whole gamut, right?
Yeah.
And so, so I was a little concerned by that, welcoming students into her class. So,
I want to read a couple more of these because I can imagine you were pretty shocked. If you have a Black girlfriend, please make sure that your shower is always adequately stocked with conditioner. Never that 2-in-1 stuff. We beg you. I mean, these are high school kids. And your son was just 10th grade.
Yeah.
So what is that, 14, 15?
Yeah.
Why would his girlfriend be showering at your house? Remember that having mixed race children is not a cure for racism or a way to live out your weird racial fantasies. Not appropriate.
Not
children.
appropriate.
And then there's like more profanity. Understand that America has what it has because it stole land from indigenous people and stole people from Africa.
Right. This is language arts. So I do kind of want to point that out too. We know that social studies curriculum has sometimes been captured, but it's penetrated into the language arts arena as well. And I think, you had Shelley on previously, and she talked about some of the things that they're reading in that as well, that is kind of, just anti-American and just not appropriate.
You put the 2 on here that were pulled, and they are so bad. I won't even read them. I won't even read them bleeping out the cuss words and the sexually explicit stuff.
Right. And kudos for them for doing that. Right. At least removing those.
Thank you for that. So this is Des Moines?
West Des Moines Public Schools. Yeah.
And Iowa, which is like
pretty conservative.
pretty
Yeah.
red.
Pretty
You have a Republican governor.
Yep. Republican governor, House and the Senate.
Went for Trump in the election.
Yep. Went for Trump in the
But
election.
this flies in schools.
Yeah.
So
After the law passed, like I just keep on stressing that because everything I'm going to tell you from this point on about that is after the law passed, right? Why I think we're up against more than just a district, why we're up against the bigger establishment, the educational industrial complex is what I like to call
slower
it.
and bigger, because I was somewhere last night and they were talking about the pharmaceutical industrial complex.
Yes.
And I thought, oh, that's what Teri uses to
Yes.
talk about education all the time.
Yes. So I refer to it as the educational industrial complex because a lot of things feed into it, right? So I go and I email the principal on this particular item. And I said, I think this violates the law. And I sent him a copy of the law. So I'm like, maybe they don't know. Because we found that too. Like your legislators will pass a law.
Right.
Somehow it just doesn't make it down to the people that it needs to. And I was like, do you approve of this? What is your thought? And he did take it down. He's like, I'm sorry, we didn't catch that. So I'm like, okay, I'll give him a pass, right?
Yeah, of course.
He's like, we're having training on that law this week. I'll keep you up to date. I'm like, okay. Well, you fast forward like 3 weeks later, and a different language arts teacher at the same school is caught on undercover video, right? She's talking about to other teachers and she's making fun of the law in Iowa and telling them how to work around it. So I email again and I was like, okay, now I think it might be a culture problem. Like, is it a culture problem actually in the school? What needs to happen? So you've had the training and you've taken down the one thing, but 3 weeks later, we're still here. And so that was the first time I ever spoke at school board meeting. And
how is that? Are you someone that has spoken up historically?
No. Like for many people, COVID is kind of thing that woke me up. And so we had this mask protest, which was really funny because we didn't know what to do. So we just were standing outside with a little sign, but that's how we networked. Like I met a lot of people that way. Right.
That's why we started Moms for Liberty. It was because, and it wasn't about masks, but we saw parents like, we don't know what to do.
Right.
So we are going to do this. And often this wasn't very effective. And so we
Right.
thought, how can we help people be more effective? And so I hope your path with Moms for Liberty is helping you be more effective.
100%. And so I go speak at that. And of course you have a mask on. So I kind of felt like Charlie Brown's teacher because we don't articulate very well when we're not used to wearing a mask. And I was like, and so I read some of those things. And then I talked about the other teacher, same school. I'm like, what do we have a culture issue? And when you speak to the school board, they don't reply to you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the process.
You're lucky if they look at you.
Right. And so that was my first thing. And then I found out then a couple months later, probably a month later, that in our 8th grade social studies curriculum, they are reading the book Stamped by Ibram X. Kendi. So the one that says
8th grade, that's really young.
Yeah.
Too.
But he has versions for all grade levels. Like he's got your
I didn't know that.
I've got middle school, and then
he's got full version at home.
Yeah.
I didn't know there were other versions.
No, because we have a leveled for everyone so that everyone gets it. And so I was like, well, I think that actually is an opposition of the same divisive concepts, HF 802. So I start peeling back the onion. I'm like, I have a doozy of a district here. Like West Des Moines historically has been this. People want to go there. Like it's a place where people think there's high academic standards. So then I start looking at academic standards too. And we can talk about that a little bit later if you want.
I do, because I think a lot of people wonder, they don't really understand, like, people from a 30,000 foot view, sometimes what Moms for Liberty is all about. Oh, you're just mad about books. You're just mad about this.
Right.
No, we're mad because there's a failing education system. And when we start pulling back those onion layers, we start seeing why there's a failing education system. And you can point to all of these things. Mm-hmm. And so I just, I want to be on record being very clear that it's all very much related.
100%. And I say this to people all the time. I said, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, and we can talk about ideologies and you can talk about all of that stuff, but fundamentally I think if you're Republican, if you're a Democrat, if you're independent, we believe as parents that by the time our kids graduate from high school, that they can read, that they can do math, and that they can be successful in society. And what we're seeing in the education system is not that.
No, a 3rd reading on grade level. Not okay. Lowest math scores in history, lowest reading since the 80s. Not okay.
Not okay.
And so at some point you I'm going to jump over to this and we can come back to some of this other stuff. But at some point you ran for school board. Where in
I
this
did.
scenario were you like,
Mhm.
when did you find that thing on the wall?
Okay, that was 2021. That was
Okay.
the fall of
And
2021.
you ran for school board in
2023.
Oh, okay. So that took some time.
Well, our elections are on the odd years.
Okay.
And so because of the mask stuff, because of the stuff that we were finding, we helped the candidates. There were 3 open seats. We were helping them run. So that's the first time I ever got involved in a campaign or an election. That was the first time I was like, door knocking. Are you kidding me? I have to go knock on someone's door. I don't know them. So we were trying to help them get elected.
But let's back up for 1 second, because also I think, have you been politically active in your life before 21?
No.
And are you a Republican now? Not that it matters, just kind of curious.
I'm a registered Republican now.
But have you always been a registered Republican?
I have not. I was a registered Democrat at one time. Yeah, my husband used to say we would cancel each other's votes out because if we both win, that was kind of
when did you officially switch? Do you remember?
I think I switched to independent first, right? And then I think I switched to Republican probably when I went to the first caucus, which was probably in like 2020. So very, very new. And I like to say I'm a constitutional conservative, right? But obviously I lean conservative and Republican. So.
Okay, I love that. Okay, so we're jumping around a little bit, but there's just so much fascinating information from you and things that you've been through and experienced. So running for school board. I know first you helped the others run, and so you learned how to knock doors.
Yes, knock doors and lit drops.
Are you an extrovert?
I'm not an extrovert. I'm very much an introvert, as you can probably tell.
Let's talk about, because we might be able to clip this later, about like door knocking. And I have no idea what you have to tell me. Like your door knocking experience overall as an introvert. Like, were you excited? Oh, I get to go knock doors.
No. It was actually a little bit terrifying. And when we were helping those candidates, I'm like, I'll be your lit dropper. I'll write your postcards, right? And then the first time I actually door knocked on my own was when I ran.
Oh, okay.
For school board. So,
and let's keep this all together. So when you ran for school board and you door knocked, what was your first time like?
So you have great resources on Moms for Liberty about that. And
momsforliberty.org for those that are watching.
And they're like, keep it short, 30 seconds, have your little speech, what have you. And so, you had to get the courage up first and foremost. And then, in my district, I'm kind of a data person. So I took this sheet. I don't know, I show it.
Yeah, you can show. I don't know if it'll show up on the camera,
nice,
but I'm so impressed with that sheet.
And I gave it to all the people that were helping me knock doors too. But it had like the stats, the proficiencies in our district for all of our schools, which were frightening. And some people's like, our schools are fine. And I'm like, okay, well, do you know that we have, 3 elementary schools that are in the 50th percentile for proficiencies for math and reading. And they're like, what are you talking about? And then they would say, well, schools are underfunded, because that's what we hear all the time. So in the other corner, I have, do you know how much we spend per student in our district? And at that point, this was, keep in mind, like in 2023, it was $19,711 per student.
You spend $19,000 per student in West Des Moines, Iowa.
And that's the average. I mean, we did a analysis of the metro area districts and then some of the bigger districts in Iowa. We have some that are, $23,000 per student.
Florida, we do not even spend $10,000. Maybe it's up to $11,000 now. I haven't been on the school board in a while. So you are double, basically.
Yes.
What Florida is spending. And tell me some of those proficiency rates. I know they're 2 years old.
No, it's okay. Because I checked them anyway before I came, so I can tell you. And we do still have elementary school that's in the 50th percentile. But we had, 55th percentile at one of our elementaries, 52 in math. Our high schools and middle schools are a little bit better in like the 70th percentile, 75th.
70th is really amazing for nationwide test scores. I mean, what about those poor 25% of their kids? But
right. But I could pause for just a little side note there. So one of the things that's coming out is this honesty gap that they're talking about. So these are state recorded scores, not NAEP scores. So if you look at the NAEP scores in Iowa, and so that's kind of one
they're
of those
not
things.
matching up, is what you're saying.
Right. And so,
so they potentially could be dumbing down your tests in Iowa.
Yeah. Or just having a different number.
The way you curve it.
Yeah. They call it a cut score. So like whatever your proficiency is, let's say someone says it's proficient is 80% here and it might be lower there. But But still, it gives us a barometer to measure over time.
Yeah, still, it's a little more than half of students
Yeah.
in grade school can read and do math, which
Yeah.
at almost $20,000 a year per student spending,
Yes.
you can get a really good private school, excellent education for that price,
Yes.
and learn how to read and do math, and maybe some other
Yes.
things that like
Yes.
Latin or
Yeah.
some other cultural things that could
Yeah.
really, music, art, the beautiful things of the world. That is
So
that's remarkable.
I just take that around because just for anyone that might be out door knocking, in our district, we have a lot of older citizens. And so they'll be like, I don't have kids in school. I don't really care about school board. And then I would always say, but do you pay taxes? Because what people understand is that's where our tax dollars are going. And
Your
like
local
property
taxes.
tax is a
Mhm.
huge issue right now in Iowa, where they're trying to get those cut. And I'm like, almost 40% of your property taxes go to schools. So we should care that we get a good return on our investment. So I tried to stick to the data, and everyone else want to stick to the ideologies, but it's fine.
What's interesting to me is it's the exact same thing in Florida. So our population is much older, as you know. So when I ran for school board in 16 and 20, it's the same thing. I don't have any kids in school, don't care. That's the same story across the country. In Florida, it really is the story. And I had these talking points in my head, but the idea to make a document, a one pager like this, that's beautiful and colored and laminate it and provide your door knockers. I think anybody that's running for school board, this is probably the first thing you should do.
Yes.
And so do you have any ideas or suggestions or recommendations for folks running for school board, or even Moms for Liberty members of a chapter that want to start educating their community on their proficiencies in their school district? Because I think if we really expose that and people understand it, they can't turn a blind eye to it.
Right.
So where did you find these scores? How did you get to them?
So I think every state probably publishes their scores. So that's the first thing. And ours is it's called iowaschoolperformance.gov, right?
Okay.
And so anytime I present data, I always cite the source. So I even have a little QR code on here. So people can take a picture because they're like, I don't trust your numbers, whatever. Yeah. And then it takes it right to that site. So that's the first thing I would say. Go look at your proficiencies first and foremost. 100%, you have to know where you're at in order to be able to communicate that message to see if you need to grow. So I would look at that. And then I would also look at the NAEP scores. And
so NAEP, for those that are listening, it's the nation's report card. So if you just Google the nation's report card, it'll take you to the NAEP website, and you can search by state, by county, drill down by age group, eighth grade, fourth grade, all types of different things.
And it'll even give you trends. So you can, the different years. So you want to see how you're going. And then there's this other really good site. I need to look at it. I apologize. It's called Education Consumers Organization.
Yes.
And what they will do is you can go to their site and it will tell you if your states are accurately reporting your proficiencies. So you go there, it says how your state's doing. You click in there, you pick your state. You can even pick your school, the whole thing. It's phenomenal.
So as a side note, let's get with Erica and make sure this is let's put the sample up on our training toolkits and things for people that are going to run for school board. Yep. I really think that empowers candidates to go to the door with data.
Yeah. And it gives you something like an introvert. You have something to talk about. It guides your conversation, right?
So how was door knocking now post?
Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't that bad. Or actually I loved it and I had this good experience. Tell me.
So it took a lot to go door knock. Once I talked myself into it and we did it, then I had fascinating conversations at the door, right? Because even people that were brought the book thing in, because that's what people focused on when I was running. Once you show them the content, they're like, oh, I thought that's not what the media is telling us. They're telling us it's, very thin or what have you. And I'm like, well, this is actually what we're talking about. And they're mortified. So we, turned some people, had great conversations, and some people, you don't have great conversations and they're like, you just need to go. Yeah, it's always good because the more people you talk to, you get the message out, then you waken up a little bit more people who then can talk to more people. So it's just a ripple effect and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And truth is under attack in America and you don't know where to turn for truth. And you go on social media and you can't believe anything anymore, even photos, videos, everything of people are created with AI and it's not really them that didn't say it and didn't do it. And so truth is very hard to find. And so you coming to a door face to face with voters in your district armed with facts, the actual books, the actual data with references. Big win for
Big
you,
win.
and a good example for you to others. So thanks, Teri, for being a good example there. Let's talk about the books. I know nobody ever wants to talk about the books. I don't even want to talk about the books, but this was a very unique circumstance in Iowa because you had laws and codes that supported everything that you all were doing when you saw the inappropriate and the pornographic books in your school district. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, so, in 2021, we talked about the stuff I found that was the divisive concepts issues. And then that was about the time that we saw attention on these books. And I'm like, I'm just going to check my district. Like, I'm sure they don't have them. Because again,
really, you thought that after the 100 ways to whatever was on your door,
right? I was hopeful, right? So I look on the site and we figure out how to do that. And of course, we have genderqueer, which was the book at the time, right? Anyway, that was in our 9th grade school. What didn't happen to be in our high school, but it was in our 9th grade school. And then I looked up a few of the other titles, and I'm like, we have them all, right?
Of course, yeah.
And
every school did.
100%. So I went at school board, talked about that too. But immediately I had been working with a school board president and about the stuff about divisive concepts. And I'm like, hey, I mailed him and the superintendent, who I know personally. Like, she was the president of the board of the nonprofit I worked for. So that, and I'm like, I know you guys get tons of books. I appreciate that. I'm like, I just think maybe a couple slipped through the cracks. And I sent the little excerpts and I'm like, what can we do? And I get the email response like, you have to follow the process. I'm like, okay. So at that point, I'm like, this is bigger than a district, right? So I did follow the process, and I think everyone knows all the stories on the books. My experience was similar to everyone's. But I will say in our state, or my district specifically, you had to have 2 members from the community. You had to have 2 students. And I asked, can we not have students for this? Because it is sexually explicit content.
Yeah.
And then they pick people from the librarian and so forth, curriculum coordinators and stuff. And it's at the discretion of the principal. So I'm like, depending on your principal, do you know you're getting a balanced committee anyway? So they said the books were fine. The other thing I'd love to point out is there were 3 options. You could keep the book in unrestricted. You could pull the book, or you could just put some sort of restriction on it. So I'm like, even if it's parental permission, like if your kid wants that book, you just have to get written permission and they can have it. Like, that book, I don't really think should be in a high school at all. But if they had made the decision for a restriction, I'm like, that's fine. Wouldn't even entertain that at all. And it wasn't just me. At the same time, we have Small Town Carroll, Iowa, challenging books. At the same time, we have a few other districts in our area. None of us are successful. None of us. So first committee, keep it. Then you get to appeal.
Keep genderqueer in 9th grade.
Yeah. And then you appeal it. So I appeal it. Then it goes up more to the administrative level. So it's just school people and maybe a school board member. Keep it. At the same time, I had a couple at the high school as well. So I had these 2 committees going at the same time. And then final decision is at your school board. So I appealed to the school board, went to that meeting. It was fascinating. I will say that was the first time we went to the legislatures, right? We went down to the Capitol, the first time I'd ever been to the Capitol building, to talk to legislators. I'm like, hey, we have these books in our school. And a lot of them will be like, it's not in our school. It's just the big city school. West Des Moines is kind of big, right? And so we're like, okay. And they're like, but this isn't, we don't approve of it. But, and then they said, well, you need to go to your county attorney because we have laws about obscenity. So go to your county attorney and tell them, file a motion with them to have them investigate. So we did that too. You collect the signatures, you send it in. Never heard from our county attorney, even we sent it registered mail. But then that got construed as we wanted everyone fired. I'm like, you guys didn't even get back to us, right? But when I ran for school board, that's the hit piece they ran on me, was about how we did that. Anyway, so I appealed to the school board, and we did have one school board member that actually said it should be removed, which that was comforting. So then I appealed to the state. That's your next step.
So I want to back up for 1 second, because people listening may think you're talking about To Kill a Mockingbird,
right?
Or, the books that they say you guys want these books banned and blah, and it's To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
There's no Moms for Liberty member, to my knowledge, that has any concerns. Like, they want their children to read
Right.
To Kill a Mockingbird. So I think there is a sex act law in Iowa, if I am correct, and it has something to do with how you were identifying the books that were concerning on a legal basis. Am I right?
Yeah, it's like there's a law in our Iowa code that defines what a sex act is.
Okay.
And so they thought, well, clearly this is in violation. So then you would have standing to say this book shouldn't be in your
But
school.
that's what you were using to gauge which books you were concerned about. Yes.
That, and there was also at that time, probably everybody knows, but there was like a ratedbooks.org site that actually had people go through and read them, and then they rated them on a scale of like, I don't know if it was 1 to 5, with 5 and 4 probably being your most. And so when we look at that and you look at those criteria, you're like, yeah, I mean, it's no different than like rating a movie,
right?
For that matter. So appeal to the state. And then I guess at that point it becomes a law, like a case. It's actually you get a legal case, and they assign an administrative law judge.
Wow.
But the administrative law judge works for the Department of Education, right? So it's like the fox watching the hen house. And so and I had submitted an affidavit myself. It was really before ChatGPT.
Was this over multiple books or just over genderqueer?
I only did genderqueer because I thought if genderqueer, if they're not going to rule on genderqueer and say that's probably not appropriate, then we're probably not going to have luck with
one of the
anything.
worst offenders.
Yeah. I mean, there is a part in genderqueer where it talks about where he visited this kink place, and they list a website of that. And if you go to that website, it's a live site. Like, it literally would take kids right there.
Well, and the depictions of oral sex between kids, like, it's just there's extensive, repulsive, pornographic thing. It's a horrible offender. Yeah.
And so anyway, but a lawyer represented me, so I found someone to do it pro bono, and we still lost to the state. So
red state of Iowa, because the Department of Education, which is controlled by educrats, I would say.
I would say, and I think it's a thing too. Like, nobody wants to be that first brave one, right? Nobody wants to make that ruling and be brave enough to stand. I mean, the discussion that happened was really
brave enough
good.
To protect kids.
I will say my lawyer
that takes courage.
Right.
Seriously.
And my lawyer, he did say, like, they're like, well, we don't think we should, be deciding this. And he's like, if you people at this table don't think that this is your job, you probably shouldn't be sitting in this seat.
Good for him.
So it was a quote that I'd reposted many times because it was so profound, I felt. So I say all that to say, and then my lawyer's like, there's such a good thing as a good win. Like, you've proven, like, we've gone through the whole process. Now you go back to the legislator next year and you're like, okay, we did everything you said. No district has been successful. This is a systemic problem that is higher than a district. When we talk about local control, it's not. Like, it's the Department of Ed, then you have the lawyers who are informing the school board members. So it really is that kind of educational industrial complex.
It is. And we saw it in Florida when I was on the school board. So you have the School Board Association.
Yeah. Throw those in too.
Completely captured.
Yeah.
You get elected and immediately they send you a whole box of captured material to tell you have no power. You need to listen to your superintendent.
Yep.
Because your superintendent is the trained expert in education and you're just there to rubber stamp, basically. And then the superintendents have the Superintendents Association, which is closely aligned with the School Board Association in your state. And they train them in the same fashion. And superintendents usually have gone through the whole system of education for a number of years. So they are completely captured.
Yep.
And then you have the Attorneys Association, same thing. And when I was on the school board, they used to have a listserv. You remember the old school listservs? They still use that. The Florida Attorneys School Board, the Florida School District Attorneys Association, or whatever it's called. And one would chime in with something concerning that came from their district. And they would all weigh in and agree on, we're going to stand in solidarity statewide. So all 67 counties in Florida would be getting the same advice from their school district attorneys, which is in close alliance with the Superintendent Association and the School Board Association, which is close in alignment with the National School Board Association, which is completely captured with the National Teachers Union. And so you want to talk about the education industrial complex.
Yes.
Like, I was living it every single day on a school board.
And we say that and people think we're crazy. And I'm like, It is a controlled mechanism. So that's why we say David versus Goliath, right? Because
Yes.
we think we're going just to talk to our local school board. You're not. You are going against every person in every layer of that complex. And so that's when we went to the Capitol. And then by that time, we broke it up. We looked at like 100 different schools in Iowa, and then we kept a database, and we're like, here's all the books that are in your school. We put together a little book with the QR codes. Like, it'll take you to the excerpts. Like, we're not telling you it's bad. Just go look for yourself. So we would go present that to them, and they'd be like, not in our school. I'm like,
Page 22. It's actually in 12 of your libraries. Like yeah. That's great.
And I think at that point then, and again, big city, little city, Iowa, it's everywhere, right? And so that at that point, we're like, that's when you need your state legislators to step in. And they did. And so we got some legislation passed. It was some great legislation. It had the gender, can't teach gender ideology, kindergarten through 6th grade. It makes you talk to parents about if the kid is transitioning, you have to tell parents that. And then it had the explicit books. And it also had something not many people talk about, but we're kind of proud of, is opting in for surveys instead of opting out. So that happened in 2023.
That's amazing. Opting in. We've been having a lot of conversations around that, especially, this summer with Mahmoud versus Taylor, the Supreme Court win, our chapter chair in Montgomery County, giving parents the right to opt out. We celebrated, we've cheered for this, but really it should be opt-in. Like, opt-out 100%. Is just the first, first of all, none of this stuff should be there, but if it's going to be there, it should be an opt-in. And so we're moving the needle at Moms for Liberty. We are trying with all of our might, but it truly is a David versus Goliath every single day. And we're busting our tails at all levels of government, trying to squash Goliath at every avenue, because it's like, the NEA charter, let's go after that. Your local teachers union is doing this. These school board associations, we need partners to step up. Like, we need stronger alternative school board association. We need alternative. Go ahead. Like,
I got an answer for you.
Yeah. We need alternative everything.
We do.
We need our own, because it's crazy.
Yeah. So I will tell you, I'll tell you about the alternatives, because that is where I find hope. Right.
Yeah.
But talking about the industrial complex, then that law passed, and all your usual suspects then filed a lawsuit against the state of Iowa.
So which law passed? Because I took us down on
the one about the explicit content in the books.
Great. So you get this great law passed. So you've gone through all the levels. You get, squashed every level. You finally go straight to legislators with your materials, your books, your QR codes, your facts. You get them to pass the law, and you're like, we won. Yay. Mm-hmm. And then lawsuits start coming. Lawfare is what we call it, right? Because there's so many tools in the toolbox, and the left has mastered them all. So you have now won the legislative victory, and now they're pulling out the last tool they have, which is lawfare. And who shows up to sue you?
Well, the ACLU, obviously, and then people join on to that, and then Random House, Penguin Random House book publishers.
Oh, Random House, the book publisher themselves.
And then the other 5
we're
big
fight
ones
to keep genderqueer in schools,
right?
Random House.
And I have a theory on that too. So those were the 5 big publishers then joined. Some of the authors of the books also joined in. And then, of course, the Iowa Teachers Union joined as well.
But of course.
So, sorry, I'm all over the place. But when you look at why would the publishers do that? They are the pipeline. That is a guaranteed revenue pipeline.
Who's making the money off the books?
By taxpayers to get those books in school. I think I looked up some stats, and like in K-12, it's like $5.1 billion. Well, if some of those books can't come in, they could be facing 20-30% hits on their revenue.
Seriously, Random House, you could also produce books that aren't pornography for children and still make $5.1 billion. Like, why does it have to be such trash?
100%. I 100% agree. So anyway, we've been in battles with that. Right now, the books are still in the schools. We had a lawyer in the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, and he said he put an injunction on it, so they have it, but you can have them in. So it's kind of blocked that law.
So genderqueer is still sitting in that 9th grade library.
I haven't looked.
I mean, hypothetically, right? It's still sitting there.
Yeah, because when they did get pulled, this is what's fascinating. When they did get pulled, it took them a long time, because they're like, we don't understand the law. So they kind of lollygagged on that a little bit. But definition of sex act is pretty clear. I mean, anyone should be able to understand what that is. But the minute that injunction got in, we saw the flood back into the into the schools. And, the one part of the industrial complex we haven't talked about is the media. Like they're in on it too, right? Like no matter how many times we interview, no matter how many times we're like, actually, this is the content.
They
that
won't
always gets
show it.
twisted.
Yeah. I mean, we
Yeah.
can go back through Moms for Liberty history.
Yeah.
Tiffany and I both doing a ton of media interviews, 60 minutes.
Yep.
Completely hacked 3 hours of interview down to an hour to make us look like horrible people, cut out
Yep.
quality answers, pasted them together with other answers, opened it up, like saying there was a group in South Carolina that was trying to remove these books. It wasn't us. And
Right.
they thought it was us, and we proved it wasn't us. And so then they had to open the whole show saying, a group like Moms for Liberty is trying to get rid of it. I'm like, but it's not us. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then what Joy Reid did to Tiffany on MSNBC on Read Out, and the headlines after headlines, and Penn America.
They're part of it too.
They are a nightmare. They're terrible.
Yeah.
They came out and put out that we were trying to get rid of a book in Pennsylvania. And I'll never forget that story, because we had a chapter in the county that they were saying we were trying to get rid of a book. And it was, Girls Who Code. Like,
why would we get rid of
that? So I saw it at like 7 a.m. I call our chapter chair, and she's just waking up. And I'm like, did you file a complaint in your district about Girls Who Code? No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I said, here's a Penn America story that says, that this is a true story, that Moms for Liberty tried to file a complaint against Girls Who Code. And she said, let me call the principal. That's my kid's school. She calls the principal, and the principal's called, and then sent a screenshot to her. 4 copies sitting on the library shelf. No one ever filed a complaint against it. No, like nothing. There was the school district is like, it's on our shelves. Our chapter's like, my kid has that book at home. Like, just flat out lie.
And that lie makes it around the world, 7 times? And does anyone ever see the correction, or if they do one? No, because that message has already permeated that whole propaganda narrative. And
it waters down the work you're doing against genderqueer and the books with pornography in them, because then people are confused. They can only take in so much information from headlines, and discount them because Girls Who Code is a great book, and it's we're living it. So
we are 100% living it. So that's kind of where we're at. So we're on hold. We think that we appealed it. So probably in the 2026.
So hope. You said something about hope. What gives you hope?
What gives me hope? Well, so many things, right? Because you were talking about like parallel things. Yeah. And so to kind of nerd out just a little bit, but when we look at the schools today, and it is a progressive agenda, and it was clearly set out, and people listening to this will probably already know the history of education, how it came over. You have Horace Mann, you have John Dewey, and like they literally said, we want to replace knowledge with skills. Mm-hmm. Okay. We want to take away effort and replace it with ease. We want to take rhetoric and replace it with, culturally relevant materials. We want to focus on emotions. Like that's where we're at. Like that played out really well. And that is a worldview I would ascertain, right? And I would say on the other side, we have a different worldview. Like we want to have education that is knowledge rich, that has that core content, that has explicit teaching instructions, that your teachers are masters of what they're teaching, that you can build knowledge so that you can think critically. So my thing is, like, you go to any school district website and they're like, we have critical thinkers. Like that's one of their mantras and talking points. And I'm like, really? I don't think that's true, because we have taken the one tool from the classical education model that teaches you how to be a critical thinker, and that's logic. And we've taken traditional logic out of the schools. And now you'll see people are like, oh, people are believing everything. Let's have media literacy. We don't need media literacy. Media literacy tells you how to trust a source. And those sources we talked about is the media. Those are the ones that they say are great. And I'm saying we need to teach kids how to evaluate information and how to discern information and how to identify propaganda and say, hey, have you guys learned about Edward Bernays and all of that propaganda that he proposed and how that message travels so fast and nobody stops to say, does this make sense? Is this really true? Like we've forgotten to do that. And so when I say that, and I personally, Sam and I crafted a bill, but it was kind of late in the session, so it didn't make it out. But I wanted to put logic back in the classroom, right? You need to teach about logical fallacies. You need to teach people how to discern information. You need to get people. That's how you critically think.
That's how you think for yourself.
That is how you think for
That's how you're
yourself.
going to create
Yes.
productive citizens, more than
Yes.
teaching them to put widgets in a box and how they feel about the widgets in the box,
100%.
for example.
100%. And I think that can change our culture because we're so polarized right now. And I think if people just stopped and said, is this true? And just took a moment to pause instead of spreading that propaganda, we would have a much different culture. So if we want to save society, I think that's one thing we can do, right? I think we can ask for logic to come back. I never learned logic. I took a class online last fall. It was fascinating. I was like, I never knew.
Here's a Tina secret. So I switched my major 5 times in college. And one of those for a short period of time, I believe, was philosophy. And so I took multiple logic classes in my undergraduate, and I found it, I loved it.
It's amazing.
It was fascinating.
Yes.
And so I don't know when it was in K-12 or if it ever was or how we would put that back in, but I think it's worth us exploring. And I'm sure you've already gone down that rabbit hole and know where it needs to be plugged in and what needs to be plugged in.
And teachers will say like, oh, we don't have enough time. Like I knew if we introduced that bill,
oh,
they'd
stop
be like,
doing
we
the
have no
social
time.
emotional circles in the
like.
morning. Circle time out, logic in. Thank you very much.
Or media literacy out, logic in.
Yeah.
Like we don't need to reinvent this. I mean, it's $1 billion industry when you talk about curriculum and consultants, and they sell this product, right? They sell it to the schools and they latch onto it. I'm like, we just need to go back to what worked. We need to go back to like classical education, virtue, all the things that we want. And so
education historically was about the good, the beautiful, and the true.
Yes.
And we are so far away from that.
Right.
And I'm just going to keep beating that drum as long as I possibly can. Can we please get it back to chasing and looking towards and holding up the beautiful?
Yes. 100%. And I mean, to piggyback off of that, sorry, I feel like I'm all over the place, but Robert Pendicio just put out an article and he's like, with his whole mental health crisis, you have the phones, you have the screens in the schools, which we could talk about that forever because I just, love that. But he's like, what materials are we actually putting in curriculum that our kids are reading? Do you ever have stories of a hero, or is it always stories of trauma, always stories of abuse, always stories of the victim so that kids can relate to it? And then you sit in these lit circles and then you have to share your experience about that. He's like, what we are putting in our kids every day from a curriculum standpoint, there is some good literature out there that we are not using. We need to get back to classics like the hero's journey and that story. And we're partly to blame, I would contend, because of what we have them focused on all day.
100%. We have got a crisis in America with children suffering from anxiety and depression, and nobody can figure it out. We're pointing to the phones, which absolutely plays a part. We're pointing to video games, what plays a part. But if they're spending 8 hours a day in the classroom with this heavy content, heavy curriculum with no hope, right? America's bad. Your skin color's bad.
Yep.
Everything about you is bad. And here's trauma that we also want to expose you to because we need you to be able to identify when.
Right.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
The good, the beautiful, and the true.
Right.
Dang it.
And I will throw knowledge in there. Like that we have gotten away from knowledge and move that to emotions, right? And you can't critically think if you don't have that foundational knowledge to start building on. Right. And so we have got to give that back to our kids. And so by putting all these other things in there, be it your skills or social emotional learning, what's the opportunity cost there? What things can't you focus on? You're not focusing on building academic knowledge. And so I feel like this all starts, this is my theory, I don't know if it's true or not, but in our colleges, teacher colleges of education, right? And we're hoping and praying that our kids are going to get knowledge-rich education, but everything in that establishment, the tenured professors, I mean, it's been years, and James Lindsay talked about it too. When Marxism came in the 60s, like hot and heavy, and how are these teachers that are learning that and not hearing any other perspective? How do we expect them to be able to teach?
Well, we've had
kids?
Several chapter chairs and chapter leaders on this show before that have gone to teachers college, and graduated with degrees. Tatiana in Arizona, for one, she said, I went and no one taught me how to teach phonics. Right. No one, not once did we do that. And now she's on a school board there, and she has championed. It's her school district she grew up in too, where she learned phonics, and then 20 years of no phonics. School district has gone down the tubes.
Right.
And so now she's on the school district advocating to get phonics back in the district. And so it's just, we can do this one school board at a time, one person at a time, one parent at a time, but you've got to get active, parents. And so let's wrap up that portion of and start winding I think our hour is winding down here. And let's talk a little bit about what parents can do.
So I think that what we can advocate for, first of all, you're your kids' parents. Like, the government and the school is not going to fix your kids. So first, we just got to spend time with our kids. We got to ask them questions. We got to get involved. We have to get engaged, right? The second thing that I think we can do is start advocating for better policies. So when I talk about the education system and that school of education and the teachers' colleges and how that's all broken down, I would propose that we get alternative accreditation models for teachers. I think Florida actually has done that. They have a classical teacher accreditation program. And I think even in the public school, I think they opened a classical magnet school in Florida. And so when I ran for school board, that's what I said. I was like, we want to be a destination district. Why don't we have a track that is a traditional classical education track? Because I know that a lot of people feel stuck in the public school system, and we're serving the whole community supposedly, but we're not serving people that want this true knowledge rich content education. Okay. So I'm like, why don't we pilot it and maybe start K through 3 and let people choose? Like, that's true school choice.
They're going to swamp to it. They're
Right.
gonna absolutely swamp to it. So my son was in a classical for 6th and 7th grade, and I couldn't believe the things he was learning. Latin, the
Yes.
root words, like he was only there for middle school, but he has taken, or 7th and 8th grade, he has taken what he learned in 7th and 8th grade, and he's back in public school, but he's using those 2 years because they didn't, it's remarkable. And we have a classical charter in my county too. And the wait list is miles long.
Right. And so when schools say, all these kids are leaving and they have educational and savings accounts and that's ruining it, I would assert that schools could change right now if they wanted to.
The public school system, school system that is winding across the country because they're losing students in droves since COVID. They could implement classical education, even as a pilot program in a school or grades or something. See what the feedback is. Watch it. Are the test scores going to increase?
Right.
Are the students happier? Is anxiety down? Like, all of the things you're going to see change because the classical education is focused on the good, the beautiful, and the true. And so I love that challenge from you. And if school board members are listening, start looking on how you can do this in your district.
Yeah. Because if we ask for it, and that's the other thing, we are the customer. And so, in my school district, I was just at a school board meeting this last Monday, and they're wanting to close our alternative high school. There were over 200 people at that school board meeting speaking out about why this is wrong to do, right? We're the customer. And I think we forget that. And we don't ask
well, they don't treat you like you're the customer.
No.
You speak, they don't even acknowledge that you're there. And then you're lucky if you get a follow-up email, and they usually don't take action. And if you come in with 200 people, and this is what we learned with creating Moms for Liberty,
right.
They'll pay a little bit of attention to you, but a sole mom, sometimes by herself, just gets completely ignored.
And courage is contagious. So to have all of those people there, I mean, it was fascinating. The energy in the room was great. But we forget that. And so when I propose this, hey, let's have this classical track for these kids. I mean, we do it with other stuff. We have immersion programs like Spanish immersion where you can do that. We have a technical track. I'm like, why can't we do this? And people spent so much time on saying, we can't because of this. We can't because of this. We need more people to say, but how can we? And start getting to the solution part of that and trying to solve those problems instead of being stuck saying, we just can't do it. Nobody's done it. Well, why? We let that get taken over by the progressive. I was a guilty parent. We watched it happen. None of us said, is this true? Why can't a public school maybe offer a charter? But what we have to do is we have to start building the pipeline because there's not a lot of places that you can get that classical education. And so we need to start building the pipeline of classical education teachers. And I say this because my son is in college and he called me. He's like, hey, I might change my major. You've been talking about classical education. I really think there's things happening in the school system. I might want to be a teacher. And I'm like, why do you spend all that time learning that when we could learn something different if you want to be the true, the beautiful, and the knowledge, right? And so they just don't have a lot of those options. I guarantee any state that does that, they will have people coming in. I think there's such a demand out there. So we just need the people to be brave enough, the school boards to be brave enough to take a choice, the state departments of education to be brave enough to offer alternative accreditation models. And my analogy I always use, I know it's kind of silly and it kind of dates me, but there were BlackBerry phones. Remember, they're all the rage. Well, Apple didn't try and create a better BlackBerry. They created a new product. They created something in parallel. And we see that happening right now. You talked about school boards. So I attended the School Boards for Academic Excellence conference this year. There are school boards that are like, you can do more than just budgets. You need to understand curriculum. You should have a say on that, like giving people the power back and educating them. You have the Teacher Freedom Alliance. So you have teachers that are like, there's something else out there. Are you kidding me? Right? I'm reading this book. It's called The Schools We Need and Why We Don't Have Them by Edie Hirsch. And he's wrote so many. He's been talking about this for like 30 years. And they're like, I've never heard of him. That should be in teachers' colleges, right? But because of the establishment and because that goes against a narrative, you're never hearing them speak at the Iowa Department of Education seminars or sessions. And so I think that is something that we can do, right? And then the other one that we have, you have the ACT, the SAT. Well, now they have the CLT. I don't know if you know.
No, I haven't heard of this.
Classical learning test.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But now you think, okay, well, they also have it for 3rd grade through 12th grade too. So they could be the comparable to your standardized tests at your states, right? So right now we are seeing the alternative parallel things happen. I think to get to the core of it, we have to have teachers that believe in knowledge-rich curriculum, that believe in explicit learning, that believe in the values and the virtues that we want. And I think we could build that. And I think it would be so successful that naturally it would take over and people would choose something different. And so I think that's the way forward. We always talk about what we're opposed to, right? Like with people hear us about the books or they hear us about the ideologies. I'm like, what are we for? Well, we are for getting education back to where it needs to be. And I truly believe we can do that. I truly believe that's what it takes, but it takes brave people. It takes people willing to stand up. It takes us willing to ask for it and to kind of demand it because we deserve that. We deserve a choice too in education. So that's what I feel.
You are a force to be reckoned with. And I see why the people in Iowa just adore you. And we said when we announced you're coming on the show, they all were so excited that you were coming here to be on the show to share just an hour of your knowledge and the research and your lived experience. And so grateful that you're here. Your last question is the last question of every episode. What does it mean to be a joyful warrior to you?
So that's fascinating because our sermon this past week was about the difference between joy and happiness, and that like joy comes from your creator, comes from God, and happiness is something that just happens in the moment, right? And in joy, you can be persecuted and you can be made fun of and you can be ridiculed because we've all been there, but you can still find joy in that. So I feel like joy for a joyful warrior for us is we'll take those arrows, right? For people that maybe don't want to speak out, we'll put ourselves out there. We'll take the abuse knowing that this isn't where we reside, right? Our joy comes from someplace else. And so we'll stand up for that truth and we'll speak for those that maybe can't speak and we'll take that fight and we'll just do it with a smile on our face.
That's my favorite answer because if you've noticed, there are people that will say, I'm a happy warrior. We're happy warriors. That's been used for, for quite some time amongst other folks, but we didn't choose the term. We didn't choose to carry that term happy warrior like others. We chose the word joy for very specific reasons and you just nailed it. So you are a joyful warrior. We're grateful to have you here in DC. I think we're going to have you here for another day or two. I'm excited about
I'm super excited.
We've got big plans here for Moms for Liberty taking on DC these few days. And so thank you for being with us. And thank you all for joining the Fire of Liberty show. I'm Tina Deskovich, the CEO and co-founder of Moms for Liberty, the host of the show. Today we had Teri Patrick from Polk County, Iowa. She is the education chair on their executive committee. We didn't even talk about that. It's not a made-up title, but they created that position just for Teri because it was a very important position. I hope other chapters will consider doing that in your chapter. And we will see you next week live 10 a.m. on all our social sites and YouTube.